This
Okay,
is
B cameras rolling, C cameras rolling.
this is Stratton interview take 2. Thank you. So you were mentioning that no one addresses what what was done in the debriefing that was so exemplary for you.
Well, I think that take it in context of the decompression. We were mentioning that people expected us to come back as basket cases. In fact, the Army went around briefing our wives 2 years earlier that we were going to be mentally deficient when we came home, and sexually deficient. Very encouraging for the women. And they were astounded that we were mentally in such good condition. They had not anticipated it. And part of the value was that we had engaged in our own talk therapy while we were in prison. Doug Hegdahl said to me, "You got anything better to do?" And the answer was yes, we had something better to do, and that was to decompress, get our act together, figure out what had happened to us, where we are and where we were going. And we went formally with the school of the ship, and informally, basically what I call, went to confession and got that boil lanced quite well. And then we came back to the unknown, expecting that we would be poorly treated, as were the real heroes of the war, the ground troopers coming back from South Vietnam. And we were amazed that we were so well received. But the decompression continued, and an essential part of it was the Office of Naval Intelligence official debriefing that you have after any hop. Well, this was a rather long hop. For Jim Thompson, it was 10 years. So it was a long debrief. We were met with an escort officer at Geelong Airport when the C-41s bought us out. And that officer stayed with us probably through the first week at home when we were still in the hospital. And part of the duty was to conduct an oral debrief that would be recorded. And they were recorded in 2 formats. One was just what I call general information, and the other, I think the code word was blue plate special. It was a recording that was going to be eyes only for a very select few. And I don't know what their intent was, but our observation was that if you wanted to bilge on someone or you wanted to rat on someone, say something not nice, it would be kept in a separate from the general debrief. In other words, on the blue plate part of the debrief, which gave us a sense of reassurance of, you could say this with complete honesty. This was not a Judge Advocate Corps JAG inspection or investigation. This was just debriefing a hop. And as a result, we had a chance to go over again all of the things that happened to us, the professional things, but not so much the emotional, personal. We got that all dumped in prison. But it gave us a chance to recreate in our own mind and organize what had happened to us professionally, what we did right, what we did wrong, just like at the end of a hop. You just don't say what a great hop it was. You usually spend most of the time talking about the deficiencies, so you don't repeat those errors again. So you debrief the hop, and this is in fact what we did. But it was a wonderful opportunity just to do a dump and recognize that this was maybe rat hole someplace in the basement of the Pentagon, but that your experience was not just trivialized and thrown away. It was not a 15 minutes of fame, that this was chipped in stone, for better or for worse, of what you thought you learned and what you know you learned and the mistakes you made and what could be done different. And it was of great, I think, therapeutic value. I realize that we don't talk about intelligence stuff, but it would seem to me that somebody would recognize that that was part of the healing process. Because you say, well, my feelings toward it, the manner in which it was done You can debrief in such a way you're not going to get any information. But you can debrief like a fellow professional, keeping it professional, prompting where prompting is needed, and doing it with, I've been there too, and help and concern when you get bogged down, and make it a healing process by the way you do it. And they did it that way, at least for me, and I've never heard anybody talk about their debrief in a negative fashion. So they deserve an accolade, the Office of Naval Intelligence, for the manner in which they received us home.
This is a really important piece of leadership, which what I hear you talking about, which any officer or future officer can think about, is that there's generally there's so much about mission preparedness and the mission itself. But this aspect of reflecting on the mission, pointing out both the strengths and weaknesses, that is not only operationally effective, but it's also emotionally effective. It's a way in which you as a leader can help your subordinates come to terms with all of the aspects of the mission. This, I see this when you're talking about it. I see young officers in training at the Naval Academy needing to hear this. Like what you're saying is there's an additional piece to your effective leadership. It's what happens after the fact. Can you put that in your own words, sir?
Well, it's an essential part of learning from your mistakes. Both the person that orders the mission and the person that flies the mission. But the real helpful part in doing the debrief is the person that flew the mission experienced everything in a flood of information coming in from all kinds of sources, and now he has to sit down and organize it and vocalize it and then relay it to another person in an intelligible manner. And in that process, he learns. That's the learning process. He learns the lesson himself, and he's now able to articulate it and then have someone, human being, give him the feedback and say, yes, I understand, or you overlooked this, or attaboy, or don't you ever do that one again. It helps in expressing it. It really helps. You were talking one time about a guy loading a van, and you suggesting that you might want to take notes on where things are. And he decided that he would show you the modern world, and he would take out his cell phone and he would clip it, and then he would have that information. And I submit to you that he won't. All of us were given little green memo books. We used to call them wheel books. You pull out your wheel book and you write in it like you're important. That's why it made you a big wheel. But somebody told you something, you wrote it down. And the value in the learning process was, I'm listening to you, now I've got to put it in my words. Then I've got to read it later on, understand it. I've got to do it. I've got to check it off. And then I've got to report back to you on what you told me to do, and I've got to be able to articulate, this is what you told me to do, and this is what I did. That whole process is what makes you learn and enables you to retain information. Clicking a button on a cell phone teaches you nothing except how to operate your thumb.
Beautiful. Red McDaniels said to me, Patrick, there's a certain point in life where you stop thinking about your resume and you start thinking about your eulogy. When you have granddaughters, and when you sit down and perhaps talk or show a Life magazine article from the 1960s that has you in it, what goes through your mind when what do you tell your grandchildren about who you are and what you have stood for and what you've gone through? How do you present that to them?
Well, First of all, let's go back to Red McDaniel's comment on the fitness report. I had good advice when I was a young ensign from a guy who had survived World War II and combat. And he said, Dick, the only way a fitness report can hurt you is if they roll it up and stick it in your eye. So I've never had anything but contempt for fitness reports. That's a bureaucratic stuff. I have a service reputation that lives beyond anything written that you might write about me or that CAG might write about me. I have a service reputation independent of that. And that is what I treasure more than anything else. And my service reputation depends on how well I take care of my people. And that's all I really care about. And I think that's a real critical thing for people to understand. If you're working for a fitness report, go to Hollywood, go someplace else, because that's not your business. Your business is people. Your business isn't war. Your business is people, because you get things done through people. And that's what you want to, that's the lessons you want to learn type of thing. So I think that's really important. But I lost the point that you were trying to get me to. Give me.
When you.
Oh, the picture. What do I tell? I'm embarrassed by it. What do you tell a kid? And I learned early on, you don't tell them anything. You wait and you listen and wait for them to ask a question. Because you may think, I know what I think is important about that picture. What's important to me is I screwed them over and I love it. That to me is a victory picture. But I don't say that to my granddaughters. And that's not a lesson I want. I'm more interested in what? Like, one will take a look at it and said, who's the guy standing behind? Numbnuts, you know? Who took the pictures? Well, I got another picture of all the cameramen running at me type of thing. And then said, those are the people that were taking the pictures. And they haven't gone to a Latin Mass. They don't know what a profound bow is. So I end up explaining to them the Latin Mass and High Mass, Solemn High Mass type of stuff. But as far as the kids are concerned, and it's part of the reason the best audience you can have as a POW anyway is in junior high school and high school. Because those kids will ask good questions. And if you just tell the teacher ahead of time, you make a class assignment out of this, you have every kid write out 3 questions and then give them to, elect somebody in the class to collect them and have that person pick out and stack the questions and ask them, when I come in, you're gonna have a better time, you're gonna have a better class than if I come in and bloviate about what I think this group of young people is gonna be interested in, or what they should know, which is horse manure. So it's a matter of trying to listen to what they want. What do they ask? But that's back to the leader. You got to listen to your people. If you're talking, my father, Dick, if you're talking, you're not learning anything. You've spent a couple of hours sitting here learning something. I haven't learned a damn thing. Because I've been talking, and I should shut my mouth and listen. And it's surprising, these kids will ask good, penetrating questions that you wouldn't have thought of, and that are more important than what you thought the lesson should be.
What kind of questions does your granddaughter ask you when she sees the photos of what you went through?
You know, my granddaughters don't ask me that many questions, and part of the reason is I decided that I would write up the vignettes of questions that they have asked at one time or another, or that Pat, Mike, and Charlie, my own kids, have asked. Like, who would think of this question, all right? You haven't thought of it. I bet you haven't asked this question of anybody. Who cleans your teeth? How many times do you say a dentist? What happened when your tooth rotted out? Have you asked that question of anybody?
No, sir.
Kid asked, picture of you, tooth is missing. What happened? Did they punch it out? I said, no, they didn't punch it out. I said, I gave him the story of my adventure with the teeth and the dentist. And finally I realized I ought to write these up. The day at the dentist, because it was a hilarious story. That my adventure with the dentist was a hilarious story. So I wrote it up. Shot down. What's it like to get shot down? Well, it's lousy. That takes care of that. But I wrote up the day I was shot down. And write up being shoved off to Christmas Mass for a photo op. Wrote it up. So I have a series, I call it Tales of Southeast Asia, and gave him a copy. I had it self-printed, privately printed, copy for each of the kids, and gave it to them, and they got it. So the questions end up being, for the granddaughters, end up being answered before they're asked. They kind of take me for granted. I think really Patrick is the one who's the most interested in still asking questions and, believe it or not, shy about asking about something. He's probably a little bit irritated he's not listening in on this one. No. So that's from my own kids, not my grandkids, were more into the questions. But the questions are pragmatic. From kids are pragmatic questions. Where did you go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
But it's important. Where? What did they feed you?
Yeah, I'm always wondering about how astronauts go to take a dump in space.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's... And it's a good question.
Yeah. If you would, sir, speak to me about the importance of having a code of honor.
That's interesting. I personally don't think you need a code of honor. I think we have too many codes right now. We take an oath of office. It tells us what's expected of us and what we're supposed to do. I have the 10 Commandments. I have a wife that tells me what to do, and I do it. My parents taught me what's right and wrong. I consider myself to be a man of honor. And very frankly, I'm insulted when someone says I need a code of honor. My family gave me a code of honor. Popeye the Sailor Man, I am who I am. I don't think that they are a good thing. I don't think that, I think something like return with honor, I think back U.S., I think things like that are good. I think they should be chipped in stone, hung around your neck, and stuff like that you can think of. Because remember, we're seizing the day, we're seizing the moment. We don't have time to reflect of, well, this is the code of conduct, and this is item number 5, and this is got to memorize it. No. You don't have time. We have in the flight handbook of the A4, there are red pages. Now they'll test you on the whole manual when the NATOPS officer comes to try and flunk you. All you care about are the red pages because they'll kill you. When it came time for me to eject, I didn't have to think. I already knew it. Reviewed them every day, many times a day and stuff like that. Everything was just in automatic, and thank God everything worked because my mechanics worked and because Douglas people built a good airplane. But there was no pausing, hesitating, or stuff like that. No, it was part of me. I didn't need a code. I didn't need a checklist. You either got it or you don't. And if you don't have it, you don't belong there in control. You don't belong in charge. We started out talking about know yourself. And if you're not a good person, you shouldn't aspire to lead people. If you don't have courage, how dare you try to lead people? And if you don't have any humility, you're going to have a very short life and career. So I'm sorry I can't contribute something. I know that people like to talk about that. I had written I still have this guy as a friend today, but about 30 years ago in Naval Institute proceedings, he was talking about Marine. He wanted us to have a code of honor, and I went back and I said, "You got enough right now." And I listed all these things, when you sign your contract, when you did this, when you did that in the Marine Corps. I said, that's your code. You don't need any more than that. And he was a professor at a university in Michigan, so he was coming back pontificating. We're still friends, and we still correspond, but never did win the argument. He didn't win, and I didn't win, so it's not a new question.
Beautiful. When you were returned to the United States, in many ways it was a war that divided the country. There were so many things that as a nation we felt defeated in, and in many ways the government felt that the only good thing they could show the country was the returning prisoners of war. That was their one, and so as it has been expressed to me, many of you were put in a somewhat uncomfortable position of being the returning heroes. As you have said, the heroes, your wives at home were heroes. The guys who were enlisted or drafted and served every day and returned home to their jobs, they were heroes. Whether or not you felt like heroes or not, you were put in the position of being the discernible heroes of the Vietnam War. Speak to me about the needs of the returning hero or of the returning warrior. What did you learn, and that can possibly help others understand?
Well, the fact of the matter on the state of the country that you were addressing, the prisoner of war missing in action issue was in fact the only thing this country was united on. That wasn't a construct of the government or the White House or the Defense Department. This, your wives stories can support this. Whether you were for the war, against the war, Democrat, Republican, this, that, or the other, when it came to the issue of mistreating prisoners, withholding information on missing in action, bringing the guys home that were prisoners, they were, with few publicity-seeking exceptions, usually from Hollywood, were united on that issue. So the government wisely grasped a hold of that as an issue that could help them get through their problems. So granted, they utilized it, but it was a fact. It was not manufactured. That we were caught by surprise. You talk about getting caught with your trousers down. We were told every bad thing that happened by Hanoi Hanna on the radio and coming through the cells and interrogations. We were told that, the stock market had crashed and there were riots in Detroit and Los Angeles and all this. We were pleasantly surprised, not horrified when we come home, that the country was not as bad as the communists told us it was. So that was the first reaction. We were pleasantly surprised. We were overwhelmed by the affection, genuine affection, that was shown to us by everybody when we came home, because we had not expected it. I was not put out front by anybody in the Navy. It was left, and this is true at the time I returned through Oakland, California, the Oakland Naval Hospital, may it rest in peace, but never put out in front of any person that I had not agreed to, offered, we would like, could you, would you, we don't care if you, but never told, you will appear in front, you will talk to this group, you will do that. The only direction I remember getting when I came home was, Melvin Laird was Secretary of Defense or something. Anyway, Secretary of Defense passed a letter around saying, Reader's Digest would like to interview prisoners of war. Reader's Digest has been very supportive of you, your families, and the government during the Vietnam War, and I would appreciate any cooperation that you would care to give. It didn't say do it on that. We did it. It turned out that Hubble's book, Prisoner of War, probably is one of the best because it has in there stuff that's now classified that had yet to be classified. They caught us in real time, just as we were coming out of the hospitals. And a team of them went around, Tomlinson and Hubble and them. And that's the only thing that was put in front of us. We didn't have to go to the White House. We were invited to the White House. Some guys chose not to for the great lawn luncheon or supper. I did not go. My sainted mother said to me, Dick, you never go where you're not wanted. And I tried to make sure that I never went as a returnee where I wasn't wanted. Alice had a list of people who had helped her, and she wanted us to be responsive to them. And the book came from that. The book was 2,251 days documentary, and that's the tape that was collected in making that documentary. And I simply said, go ahead and write your book. I'm not gonna, I won't get in your way. Don't knock the Navy, and I won't bitch about it. And they said they'd show it to me. I said, I don't want to see it. I said, well, your kids do. I said, well, and he did. Blakey came and had sent the book ahead and talked to the kids, and Michael said, I don't want to be in it. Take me out. I don't want people to know I'm adopted. And so Scott talked to him, listened to him, and he says, first of all, he says, done, I'll take it out. I'll take you out altogether. He said, yeah, take me out altogether. I said, fine, he said, I'll do that. He said, however, think about this. He said, somebody out there who's adopted might like to know that you can survive adoption. And I give Mike credit. He turned around and went with it. So, but that was on Alice's list. These people have helped us. And at that time, even though it was public television, those people were helping her ladies get publicity in the Bay Area. And say, you owe these people to at least show up and say thank you. So I ended up on a speaking circuit responding to these people, and nobody forced me to do it. The government didn't.
Beautiful. We're almost out of time, so what I'd love to do, I'm going to ask you again about the evening that you heard the refrains of God Bless America, and I'm just wondering whether I can cajole you, twist your arm, or beg you to sing it, because I think lending your voice to the edit of that would be wonderful. But if you would like to say no, that's fine.
He would like to say no.
Okay.
Nice try. Nice try, though. Good on you.
I did my best.
Yeah.
What I'm going to ask you to do, and then we're going to get ready with the do you remember the poem Invictus.
Yeah.
And if you're comfortable reading that without staring at it, that's great. Otherwise, you could just read it. But if you could read the words for that.
It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Beautiful, beautiful. And now if you turn the back of that, there's a poem called High Flight. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I am. Gonna have to read it. I don't have that. Somewhere I have glasses.
You need some reading glasses?
Oh, he's got them in his left
I got
pocket.
it.
Good, Bill?
Mhm.
The poem High Flight. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things. 100 things you have not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through the footless halls of air. Up the long, delirious burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or even eagle flew. And while with silent, lifting mind I've trod the high, unsurpassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
That was fantastic. I'm going to bring in a little case now. And you'll help me understand where we should set this.
Is this for the
Yes.
tap code?
Yes.
It should be to the right,
Yeah.
camera right.
But you need me to hold it.
Yes.
Yep, you gotta hold it.
Okay. Then I need to run out.
We need you.
Yeah, no, I know, but then I need to run out.
Okay.
Before Alice gets here.
Yeah, maybe on edge, Patrick. Can you fit?
See what we can do here.
All right.
Just check.
I'll take that from you, sir.
This is our imaginary cell wall.
This is the better side, basically.
Okay. What I need to do is get something to prop the bottom. Do you think,
Yeah,
first of all, am I close enough? Not-
Yeah, you need to move closer
Yeah.
to get into my shot. There you go. And then angle it,
More this way?
Yeah, there you go. Whoop, no.
Hold on.
Bring the edge that's on your left hand
Whoops.
toward me. Toward yourself, I mean, I'm sorry. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, that works. Can you reach from there, and we're gonna have you tap out something, whatever you want.
Something in the tap code.
Oh, let me know when.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Is this comfortable place for you? to
Yeah,
reach
sure.
yeah,
for?
that's,
Okay.
that's good for
Um,
me.
I'm out of your frame, right?
You are.
I could hold it.
You need to come back and reposition your camera.
Oh, okay. All right. So Carrie, you
Yeah,
want to
Carrie
hold
will
that a
hold it.
second? Yeah, you're gonna.
Hold the
You
top
could
toward you a little
probably.
bit, Carrie. There, yeah, right there. That's good.
Where do you want my hand?
And that's perfect right there, but hang on just a second, wait till Patrick gets organized. And let me adjust this camera, sorry.
And where are you gonna tap? If you could just show me right there. Okay, perfect.
Okay, one moment please. Let me just adjust this guy. Okay. Just a second.
And let me just angle the microphone a little bit more towards you.
Sure.
Am I out of your frame?
Yes, it's out of the frame, it's out of that shot too. Show us where you're gonna do it again, please, Dick. Okay. Tell me, I'm just gonna do the hand and a piece of his face. You're gonna do
I got
a
him.
little wider.
Can you see my
Yeah, I
hand?
see your shot. Yep.
Alright,
Okay.
so, feel free to describe anything about the tap code, as you start, Dick. And, you set, Bill?
Yeah, push
Ready?
the top, push the top away from you to carry a tiny bit. Push the top away from you a tiny bit.
Toward,
Toward him. There you go. Perfect. Now it's vertical. Ready?
okay. And action.
Hi. Tap code runs a box across the top. A, B, C. Okay, then come down the side. You go down by the rows. American Football League quits victorious. That's the first letter of the box. So if I want to go to box number 2 on an F, second row, first letter. Remember, my A was first row, first letter. Second row, first letter. American Football League quits victorious. That will serve you well in any prison you're in. And most prisoners in most countries understand a quadratic alphabet.
Beautiful. That's the most thorough explanation of that. I've never heard the American,
Paul Galante.
Really?
He put that together?
Yep.
Tap a message to one of your fellow former POWs. We're gonna see who are we gonna see coming up?
George Coker, Phil Butler, Mike McGrath, Orson Swindle. Sorry.
Any of
I was trying to
those
get it better.
folks or men you spend time with at all?
Pull the top towards you a tiny bit, carry your.
All of them.
Right.
Okay, so tap a message to George Coker. And what does that say?
Hi, you big fat guy, see you.
I will play that for him and have him tap a return. Thank you, sir. Bill, you good?
I'm good.
It's a few minutes to 12, so we
I'll
can
be back.
Let's do a tail slate.
tail slate.
I'm gonna hold that.
Thank you.
Great.
Got it.
And then you need to do room tone and
Oh, good. Okay. We might as well just, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just add the room tone at the end of the tail slate.
Okay, start with open. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, that was the tail slate. Now we're just gonna sit here for about 30 seconds and hear what the room sounds like quietly.
Okay, this is room tone, Dick Stratton. All right, that's room tone.
Shall we cut?
Yep, and that is a cut.